What's going on, everybody? Another little update, if you will. You know, I went to my first contest up in Anniston, Alabama, at the beginning of the month, and while I was there, of course, there were vendors. Obviously, I mean, any show, I guess, like that has vendors. Anyway, I ran into a vendor who is actually from the Pensacola area, which is only about an hour away from where I am in Mobile. And he had some kits that caught my eye because I don't know if I've mentioned it before. I'm an Air Force veteran. I was an aircraft mechanic. I started in the Air Force working on B-52H models in Minot, North Dakota. Mind rot is what I call it. In fact, Minot is the reason why I live on the Gulf Coast now. I don't do cold weather very well anymore. And then I went from the B-52 to the B-2 bomber. So I've always had a passion for aircraft, and most of my plastic modeling has been aircraft related. It's only been in the last year that I've really become more interested in automobiles because of the job that I do now. I'm not a mechanic though. Anyway, hang on a second and I will show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so first one, like I said, I worked on B-52s initially in my Air Force career, and then when I went to the B-2 bomber, and part of the training I had to go through for the B-2 was out at Edwards Air Force Base in California, and the Dryden NASA Research Center is in the same location. Well, there was a group of us out there for training, and we all had come from B-52s. So we had a day off and we were exploring the base a little bit. So we went over to the NASA Dryden Research Center and were able to get a behind the scenes tour of a lot of their aircraft. And at this time, which would have been, 93, the B-2 was still there in the test phase. We had not yet received it into service in the Air Force. So it was a combination of Northrop Grumman engineers and Air Force personnel working together to evaluate the aircraft. But the B-52 that NASA was using was the B-52B model mothership, the one that carried all the lifting bodies and the X-15, and we got to go crawl around on it. I mean, this was a piece of history that we got to really look at up close. And the kit that I was able to pick up, this thing is huge. It's 1/72nd scale. I don't even know, yeah, there we go. 1/72nd scale. Not only is it the B-52, but it also comes with the X-15. How cool is that, right? Balls 8, that was the tail number of the aircraft, 008. Any aircraft, any B-52s especially, that started their serial number with 00 were balls whatever. I worked on several of them that were balls aircraft. But anyway, that is cool. And this aircraft, the original mothership, has now been retired, and they have replaced it with a G model B-52. The H models being the most recent versions, the ones that I worked on. The G models were actually used during Desert Storm. So that's the first one. So the second one, in the same vein, all right, going through the history, my history, the B-2. The B-2 is a direct descendant of Jack Northrop's flying wing design bomber, the YB-39. I'm sorry, the YB-35. All right, the 35 was a propeller-driven flying wing bomber, right? It was far ahead of its time, but I got that too. It's another big one. It's also 1/72nd scale. And an interesting fact about the flying wings, the YB-35, the YB-49, which is the jet version of the flying wing, and the B-2 bomber all had the exact same wingspan. And the B-2 from nose to tail was only about as long as an F-15 fighter. So that's another awesome kit to have. So I've got a lineage going on here. And finally, to complete the lineage of those aircraft, the YB-49, the jet version. So all three of these kits are 1/72nd scale, which for the B-52 is still a very large kit. Normally when I do aircraft, I do 1/48th scale. 72nd scale for fighters and things gets really kind of tiny, and the detail work that I like to do is just, it's too minute on those fighters. But for bombers, you know, something of this size, 1/72nd scale is really the scale to do it in. They don't make these in 1/48th because they would be just enormous. I mean, as they are, they're already hard to store and display. I will probably end up hanging all three aircraft from the ceiling in my family room, great room. The one aircraft I had at one point, let me put this down. So I had at one point, Testers made a B-2, and I did have that kit, and this has been, oh gosh, I think they probably came out with that in 94, 95, not long after the B-2 came into service in the Air Force. And I picked it up at the base exchange. And as I recall, there was some inaccuracy with the nose landing gear door, I'm thinking. I know there was something about it that just wasn't quite right, and I wasn't too pleased with it. I had started it, shelved it. I think I ended up giving it away to somebody as a partially started kit. So I might need to try to find one of those again so that I have the complete line of flying wings. But yeah, to me that's just cool. I've got that history with the aircraft. So, but also while I was up there, of course they did raffles, and I bought raffle tickets. And I got a few decent models out of that. So let me show you those. All right, this kit, I'm pretty sure I had this as a kid. It looks familiar to me, so I'm pretty sure I had it, or maybe there was a different version that I had. But the F-86 Sabre. This was one of my all-time favorite aircraft when I was a kid. In fact, when I think I was a freshman in high school, maybe a sophomore, we had gotten a dog. It was supposed to be a Shetland sheepdog, but I think he was more border collie. Anyway, his name was Sabre because of this jet. That's how much I loved this jet. But I thought that was pretty cool. So I've got this again, 1/48th scale, my scale. I think this is an older kit. Well, it says 2012, but I'm pretty sure that's a reboxing. So, got that. And then lastly, the only automobile I was able to get while I was there, I didn't purchase anything from the vendors automobile-wise. Nothing was really catching my eye like the aircraft did. And like I said, the aircraft, that's mainly because I have that history. Otherwise, I probably would not have bought those. And I didn't mention this in the beginning. So the vendor was from Pensacola, an hour away from me. Well, I didn't ask at the time, and why would I? He has very limited hours. So he's only open on Thursday and Friday from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. and on Saturday from, I think, 3 to 5:30. Well, as it turns out, I normally have Thursday and Friday off. No big deal. Except my roommate, her car has broken down, and I have a minivan and I have my motorcycle. The motorcycle is the reason I didn't bring all these kids home with me initially. So I had him bring everything back with him, and I was going to pick them up from him. So I'm off on Thursdays and Fridays, but she works on Thursdays and Fridays, and she gets off at 5 o'clock. So, I could take her to work in the morning, but then I'd have to pick her up in the afternoon and still drive over to Pensacola and back. She didn't really want to do anything like that after 5 o'clock in the evening. And I understand that. I don't want to get up early the next morning after being out later in the evening. She wants to get home after a day of work and chill out, relax. So I also had picked up some overtime on those Thursdays and Fridays. The first 2 Thursdays and Fridays since I went to the show, so my vacation time. So for 2 weeks, I could not get over there. And the Saturday thing, well, her and I both work on Saturdays, and we don't get off work until 3:30. Now, he closes at 5, right? Is that what I said? Yeah, I think 5. So 3 to 5. I think I said 5:30 initially. I think it's 3 to 5. Well, that'd still be pushing it, but it is earlier in the day. Well, she didn't want to go. Finally, this last Saturday, I said, look, I need to get this stuff from this guy. He's hanging on to it. I've already paid him for it. I need to get this stuff. So we went after work and made it. We made it there about 15 minutes before they closed up shop. So that's why I'm just now showing you this stuff. I haven't had it in my possession until now. 3 months, 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks later. All right, so back to the last kit. The only automobile I got, and this was part of the raffle. Now, this is a Volkswagen Type 87. So this would have been what the Germans were using during the war. And I think I did a little bit of reading on this. I think it was an all-wheel drive vehicle, if I'm not mistaken. And it's in 1/35th scale, which that's one of the smaller scales, right, for automobiles. I've never built one in that scale, but I seem to recall that I think armor is all done in 1/35th scale too. Well, not only 1/35th scale, but I think that's the primary scale for armor enthusiasts. So, and I'm not really an armor guy. Never have built. I've seen a lot of it. Some guys do really cool stuff with it. I wouldn't know what's right and what's wrong looking at one. I'd have to really study it to find out. But this thing, I kind of like this one. I think this one's going to get built in the fairly near future, I think. How about that? Pretty cool, huh? So the only other thing I wanted to mention was I placed an order with MCW Finishes just recently, and I got the paint that I'm going to use on the Dodge D50. This is Lemon Twist Gloss Lacquer. Here we go. Now, I couldn't find the exact color call out for the Dodge D50 for that year, even though he's got just about every color for every year for every manufacturer. This was the closest I found to one of their actual colors. It was either this or black. There were some other colors, but I wasn't too excited about those, and I really only found a few reference photos, and they happen to be the yellow and the black. But I think this is going to work out really good, especially since I used that mahogany primer. That'll darken this a little bit, and I think it'll look perfect for what I'm doing with it. And then the other one I picked up, this is an enamel. It's anodized blue metallic, and it's from MCW Finishes, but it's actually part of Barbatos Rex's Mecha Empire line. This is one of his new metal colors, and check that out. That's just a gorgeous metallic blue. I think I had something in mind when I saw this and ordered it, and I've since forgotten what it was I was going to use it on. It'll come to me eventually, but yeah, I like this. Beautiful color. That's probably what I should have used on the Pontiac GTO engine, was this. Maybe that's what I thought, and then got too anxious and did it the other way. I don't remember. Anyway, so that's what's going on at this point in the week. I am working on the D50, and I'll have an update on that coming up here by the end of the week. So stay tuned. Thanks y'all for joining me, and have a great week of modeling if you get the time at your bench. My bench time has been limited, but I'm starting to make up for it. Talk to y'all later. Peace and love.